Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. We're back again and it's more Commander deck text featuring cards from Phyrexia All Will Be One. Today's card, once you've hit the like and subscribe button, I'll tell you all about it, is a monocolour card, and it's a strange one. I've been playing around with it a bit and I've played it upstream a couple of times now and it seems to be okay. I'm not saying it's the best build of this deck ever, but it's actually a lot of fun to play. So the deck I'm talking about today is Kinzu of the Bleak Coven, 4 and a black for a 5/4 flying Phyrexian vampire. And whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 and has Toxic 1. Now, this is kind of a strange one. It's good fun to play, but it's trying to build around it. So what you don't want to do, usually if you're doing something like this, you usually build a lot of token decks. You have all the tokens you can make in black, you get some colourless tokens, so on and so forth. But this one, you don't want to be doing tokens, you want to be having actual creatures. So, I've tried to build it. Like I say, I've played it a couple of times on stream, and it works okay. But this is what the deck looks like for today's video. As usual, I'll start with going through my mana base and all the rest of it. Every black land you can think of, a load of swamps because they're useful. Temple of the False God, Urborg's in here. We've got Nykthos because it's a monocolour deck, and I follow my rules about monocolour decks. Always play Nykthos. Mortuary Mire, just so we can put a creature card from our graveyard on top of our library, which is important. Memorial to Folly, so we can return the creature cards that may be in the graveyard. Field of the Dead should trigger eventually, is my thought, so that's why it's here. Fabled Passage to find that swamp we need. Desert of the Glorified, Command Tower. Cabal Stronghold, just so we can get all those extra mana off those swamps, along with all the Cabal coffers. We've got one of each. And then Blighted Fen as well. Target opponent sacrifices a creature. It does help, believe it or not. The ramp side, Mox Tantalite, Soul Talisman. We've got Soul Ring, Mind Stone, Arcane Signet, and Commander's Sphere. Yeah, bit of a basic one, not too hard. I mean, we can count Solemn Simulacrum as ramp as well, because I usually do nowadays. So, but what we have got is just a whole load of creatures that do things, and then hopefully we get to get them back. And, okay, we may exile some of them in the early game with Kinzu, but at the end of the day, what we want to try and do is get things moving around so we don't have to exile and we can just return stuff to play and just use their abilities again and again and again. So, let's see where we're going with this. So, a little bit more ramp and Dark Ritual to start with, but then we've got the festering ones, I call them. So you've got the Goblin, the Festering Mummy, and Shambling Goblin. When they all die, they will chuck a -1/-1 on something to the end of turn. Does help, believe it or not. It does take out a lot of the annoying things, and it can be quite useful, especially if you can get them back. Visra Seer is one of our sacrifice outlets, so we can do this. If we do need to trigger Kinzu a lot, that gives us one way of sacrificing things off, and the Scry is always brilliant. You can't fault having a Scry in a deck. Warlock class is here, just so we can, if in the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, each opponent loses a life. A little bit of life drain. But, to get to the level 2 and the level 3 of the Warlock class really does help, especially when you hit the level 3. Now, it's not actually that difficult to get 7 mana on the go with this between the use of Nykthos, Cabal Stronghold, and Cabal Coffers. You do get there really quite quickly sometimes. Elixir of Immortality, things start going pear shapes in as well, just so we can shuffle everything back in. And then Expedition maps in this deck, mainly because we do want to use it to go and get the coffers, the Stronghold, the Nykthos, or if we've got one already and we need to make sure everything's a swamp, go and grab our Urborg. Believe it or not, it's kind of key. Blood Artist is in. We're gonna be killing our own creatures off, so we might as well get a little bit drain off while we go. Okay, it's only a target player loses 1, you gain 1, but you can always target the person with the most life. That's what I tend to do. Cabal Ritual lets us ramp a little bit more, and we do get to Threshold with this, so you can gain 3 mana overall with this one. Powerstone Fracture, another way of sacrificing a creature, plus it kills something that's really annoying us. Okay, it's sorcery speed, so it's not the best, but it does work. The other ways we've got sacrificing: Priests of the Forgotten Gods, sacrifice a couple of our creatures, the mummies maybe, and then we get to do the whole, where are we there, Priests of the Forgotten Gods, there you go. Get the 2, draw a card, get a couple of black mana. It helps, believe it or not, especially if you've got Varan, Executioner, Thane out. This is really nice in this deck. Another one from Phyrexia will be one. You could purely build a deck around this, but you can swap the commanders over with this deck to a certain degree. But I want to play this in the main deck and play Kinzu as the main commander for this. Only triggers once a turn, which is a little bit annoying, but if you've got Seer in play, you can sacrifice a creature every turn, do the whole trigger, because it's not your turn, it's once per turn. Zulaput Cutthroat is a slightly improved version of Blood Artist, because it does every opponent instead of just targeting one. And then we've got a sack outlet in Altar of Dementia. Nice way to mill either your opponent or yourself out if you need to at some stage. I'm not sure why you need to mill yourself out, but there may be some way of doing it with the game with what you've picked up. Arcane Signet, Milestone I've already mentioned. Bastion of Remembrance, another way making people drain and gain, so that's why it's here. And Feign the Broker's here as well. Another way to sacrifice a creature, get some +1/+1 counters, get a treasure token, create a 2/1 Inkling if you need to, and then pay 4, untap it. You can probably do it a few times eventually in a turn if you're lucky. Kez Kit, the Flesh Sculptor's also here. Sacrifice 3 other artifacts or creatures. Look at the top 3 cards. 2 in your hand, 1 in your graveyard. Perfectly acceptable way of doing things. Midnight Reaper, you gain a damage, draw a card. And then Tabarok's Hope's Demise. What I'm really hoping you do with this is get it up so you get the 5 or more +1/+1 counters as soon as possible, so you get the nice little life link that's going on. That helps you sort of nullify some of the life you'll be losing with things like Midnight Reaper or so on and so forth. So bear it in mind. The Drow Apostle is also here. Viconia, just so we can get the cards back for return a random card from our graveyard. And then, we do get 4 creatures in our graveyard quite quickly, so it's quite nice, especially if we can protect her. Braids is another way of sacrificing things off, gain the life. Liliana, Heretical Healer. Seemed like a bit of a no-brainer with this. We want to kill our creatures off, so getting her to transform when you have her in place should be fairly straightforward. And then Ariane, the First of Lockveins, also here. Do the whole gain a life, lose a life thing. Ashnod's Altar, a little bit more ramp. We can sack some of our creatures off this as well. Another sacrifice outlet if we need it. Commander Sphere I've mentioned. Extra Planar Lens. Yes, maybe a little bit overkill with a ramp on this, but we've got quite a lot going on, so like at 4, 5 and 6, so we need the extra mana, hence why it's in this deck, and you will just exile a swamp with it. Likewise, Phyrexian Altar gives us another way of getting coloured mana if we need to by sacking our creatures off, so between the Seer, the Altars, we've got a few ways of sacrificing things. Cryptcast, just for the Extort ability, it sits in this deck quite happily, and tapping your swamps for an extra mana is always good. Dread Presence, another way of doing the whole 2 damage and gain 2 life thing, or you can draw a card when you play a swamp. You should say Landfall now. Landfall Swamp is what it should say, but it doesn't. Body Launderer, going back to the streets of New Capenna. Coming in, another non-token creature you control dies, Connive, and when it dies, return another target non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a great way of getting some of the stuff back you may need. Damnation gives us a bit of board control. Dread Return brings something back when we sack some more creatures off. Or pay the 4 mana, maybe do it twice. It works. Gissa, Glorious Resurrector. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gissa, the Glorious Resurrector, into battlefield under your control. They gain decay. Yeah, but that's not the point. They're actual creatures, not tokens. So you can sack them again if you've got a sack outlet and get token copies of them. And you control it, so it should work if my memory serves correctly. Gonti, just to make sure, it's a mono black deck. You've got to play Gonti, really. Likewise, Rankle's here as well. Can go on the attack, and when it deals combat damage, you get to do the whole each player sacrifices a creature, which is great if you've got Gissa in play. And Solemn Sim I've mentioned. Exquisite Blood, whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that life, so doubles up some of the triggers on some of your things. Well, if you want to call it double up, it's not a true double up, is it? But you know what I mean. Crux of Fate to control the board a bit more. Hello, thank you. Dictator of Erebus, we're going to sack our creatures off so everyone else can sack a creature, which is a great plan from my mind. Drivnot Carnage Dominus, seems like a natural fit in this deck. We do want to trigger it twice if we can, and if we trigger it for an additional time, you know, especially the life gain side of things, it does work nicely, and we can make this indestructible because 8/3 ain't great, but getting it into play, I think we're going to go it with a Horus, by the way, isn't a bad plan in my mind. Likewise, God Eternal Bontu's in here. Sacrifice any number of permanents, then draw that many cards. Another great way of sacrificing it when you've got everything you need to do to win. Junji, returns something that's not a dragon to the battlefield under our control. We lose a couple of life. Liliana, Death's Majesty, hits the board. Mill a couple of cards, get a zombie, fine. But, you know, the -3, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's black zombie in addition to its other types. Really does help with this deck. Because we are manipulating our graveyard to a little place and play. Likewise, Lol's Sin as well. We're just going to use this to make the spiders with reach, and then, you know, hopefully get the loyalty counters up. If we can get up to the -8, it'd be fantastic in this deck. I haven't tried. I've got close a couple of times. I've had Lol sitting on 7 counters at some stage, and yeah, it's been a little bit sad that I haven't been able to do it, but I've got closer through time, so hopefully I'll get there at some stage. Likewise, you know, we like creatures going to our graveyard, so Sir Conrad the Grim makes perfect sense in this deck. Likewise, Cavalier at Night, sacrifice another creature, gives another sack outlet, and blows something up. And when it dies, we get to bring something back, which is even better. And it's got lifelink, so, you know, 4/5 for lifelink for 5 mana. I can cope with that with a little bit of an upside. The Twins is here. Obviously, I'll put this in because when it's a nice little dive trigger, and if you've got the Dominus in play, you get to have this double trigger, so you get 4 zombies from it, so bear that in mind. But it's a 4/4 for 6 mana, which isn't great, but, you know, a couple of zombies when it dies, cope with that. Obviously, I'm playing a black deck, so Grave Titans here. Likewise, Harvester of Souls. Whenever a non-creature token creature dies, you may draw a card. Yeah, we'll be doing that a lot. Kukushko, the Evening Star, nice way of each opponent losing 5, we gain 5, especially if we can then get a copy with Kinzu in play, which we hopefully be able to. Demon of the Dark Sky, schemes, nice way, you know, we do generate a lot of creatures dying, we do find energy coming quite quickly with this when it's in play, and that means we do nick other people's creatures from their graveyards, so yeah, we'll go with that. And Vraska, Betrayal Sting, a nice way to proliferate to get other planeswalkers up. We can, you know, target also controls the board a bit by making another creature a treasure, and the -9, not probably that relevant in this deck. We're not really got any way of poisoning anyone, but, you know, the 0 and the -2 really help, especially the proliferation side of things, so, you know, cope with that. Wormcoil Engine in this deck is fantastic. I've played both games I've played it. I've managed to have Wormcoil in play and Kinzu, and yeah, my brain did work at the point where I had the 1/1 Wormcoil Engine, and I sacrificed it, and I got 2 more 3/3s, because the text stays the same. It doesn't change the size of the creatures you get when it dies, so bear it in mind. Last 2 things, a little bit of removal in Black Sun Zenith. A whole load of -1/-1 counters around. It gets around all the indestructible stuff I'm starting to see coming through. And likewise, Black Sun Zenith. Black Sun's Twilight, sorry. If X is 5 more, return creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Does give you a way of getting back all of these things if they've ended up in the graveyard. And the final card, Cauldron of Eternity. Yes, you'll have your creatures in your graveyard very quickly, and whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of his owner's library. Pay 2 life and return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. No tricks here. You're just going to basically go cycling on your creatures at some stage. But that's it. I mean, Kinzu works really well with all the creatures I've mentioned, and, you know, having that ability to have a copy of them really does help us out with this deck. So we've done this one a little bit quicker than normal today. I'm trying to speed up. Some of the videos recently have been a bit long, so I hope you've enjoyed this slightly shorter deck tech today. Yeah, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube, hit the like button, leave me a comment, let me know what I've missed out. If there's something you really think should be in the deck, I know there's things like Black Market Connections could go in the deck. I don't own one on MTGO, but, you know, there are cards that aren't even programmed on MTGO yet that would be really good in this deck. But since I play mainly on MTGO, that's why we get the deck techs on here. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're going to leave me a comment, and I'll see you for my next video, which will be coming up soon. Take care. Thanks and goodbye, one and all. He says trying to hit the stop button.